I'd like to call the meeting of the Camarillo Library Board to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Tremblay. Here. Trustee Kildee.
Here.
Trustee Craven.
Here.
President Pro Tem Mulchay.
Present.
President Santangelo.
Here. Mayor Kildee, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any amendments to the agenda?
No amendments.
Any speaker cards? Would anybody like to address the library board? Okay, we'll move to the consent calendar.
Move the approval.
Second motion.
A motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. Please vote. And that passes unanimously. Departmental items, staff report.
Yes, Madam Chair, we have Antonio Apodaca, Library Director, here to provide you a brief summary of the summer reading program and upcoming events.
Let me turn that on for you there. There we go.
Hello. Yes, and I promise it will be brief, these reports. Oh, my goodness. But very happy to give this nutshell information because we did a lot with our summer reading program. Unfortunately, the last library board meeting, the program was still basically running, so we had to take a little bit of time to get a breather, get our data together so that we could supply you with some of those hard numbers and different information about how many people participated and that kind of thing. Some of the big changes this year were that we went to an online platform. There was still an on-paper option, but a lot of the reading engagement we try to encourage online. What this meant were that participants, who we now call members of a summer reading club, it was open for pre-readers, that's birth to 4, children school-aged, teens, and then adults for the first time, trying to get the whole family involved with reading, could sign into this online platform and achieve digital badges for their reading efforts. These are little markers of achievement that you see in the online platform, and you can collect them all. We were very pleased to announce that a lot of people took that seriously and earned quite a few badges over the summer. In addition to that, we tracked the minutes read. These are minutes that our club members over the summer had said as a family, either reading to a child reading by themselves, whatever the case may be, it all counted. So we wanted to know how many minutes were being read. One of the nice features of our Summer Reading Club's app, or the online version, is that it had a built-in reading timer. So ideally, a club member could sign in, tap the button when they're ready to start reading, and then tap it when they're done. Some of the positive feedback we heard from parents and families was that that was a nice way to kind of gear up their children to read for 20 minutes a day, which is a nice measure of reading. Basically, you do anything 20 minutes a day, it's probably a good idea to build a strong habit. But specifically when it comes to literacy and reading comprehension in children, schools will say 20 minutes a day is what we want you to do for your homework. So it was a nice attempt to continue that throughout the summer. Another piece of the new approach to summer was to more directly address the summer slide. This is sort of a common term for summer learning loss, which anybody with a teacher in the family knows what that's all about. Specifically, the studies show around age 8. So entering or exiting 3rd grade is a really tricky time where over a summer vacation or a summer break, as fun as that is, if the reading habit slips, the student will be challenged to get back up to speed, starting with the new school year. And after 3rd grade or so, that it only gets worse. That gap continues to widen, and you'll see some unfortunate negative impacts later on in a child's academic career. So in effort to try to address that sort of thing, we included the adult reading program. The idea is through some behavior modeling, the adult at home would be incentivized for reading as well through the summer. And proud to say that we had close to 400 adults sign up, which was just great for us. We partnered it with an event called Camarillo Rocks, and this is something I'd given a quick update about before already, but basically we were challenged to go about in the community and find and collect and return back to the library painted rocks that had literary figures on it, book covers, and that sort of thing. That Facebook group that was created around the adult reading program had over 500 people participating and ended up being one of the more popular parts of our summer reading program. So very pleased to announce that. Of course, our events are always there's no comparison when it comes to what we offer on a weekly basis during the summer at the library. Regionally, we're the leader. We are a destination for a lot of families. So we continued our Wacky Wednesday performers. There's a quick summary in that report as well about the turnout that we had. For the sake of time, I would be happy to give you more information if you'd like about that. We did keep some close statistics about who was coming to what event. And I just wanted to highlight that those were all sponsored by the Friends of the Library and how proud we are of that partnership and would not be possible without their contribution. And we even included an extra day called Throwback Thursday, where we called back on last summer's performers and said, hey, you were very popular, would you like to come back? And of course, we lined it up so that they could, and we basically offered a double set of events for parents and families during the summer. I think in a nutshell, again, that is the report. We'd be happy to give other information after today as needed, but we're very proud of what we achieved and now can take a breath and approach the school year with some new energy. Yeah, and maybe beyond that, I did submit our monthly activity report, which gives maybe some other details as well if you kind of wanted to know what we did last month.
Questions, comments? Questions or comments?
Thank you.
No, I'll make a quick comment. As a husband of a wife who teaches third grade, the summer slide is real, and it's noticeable. Every year when school restarts, I hear about that all the time, and it's although it's anecdotal, the kids who stayed rather active during summer. When she asked everyone what they did during the summer, the kids who stayed rather active and challenged themselves from a mental standpoint and even to a degree a physical standpoint, seemed to be able to come back and be in lockstep with where they left off the year prior, versus some of the kids who, say, just sat around and played video games. But I had one question: How is this performance in relation to last year?
The performance is, we had growth. Last year we had a paper-only program and had approximately 900 sign-ups. I'm forgetting the number off the top of my head. So the fact that we could climb over 1,000 showed some growth. I still think that we can grow more. Especially with the event attendance that we receive at the Wacky Wednesday and Throwback Thursday events that are very popular. The new goal is to get those participants into the library, into the club, and participating. So I think we're proud to say we did grow, but we can continue on that track, for the next year.
Excellent. Thanks.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I have a question. Are there any strategies to get teens more engaged and more reading? And I'm also asking personally because I struggle with that, trying to get my teens to enjoy reading.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you figure it out, you can let the library know, and we'll do our best. At least the best practice is reading for fun, and that there is a level of exhaustion that's just going to naturally occur when you have to read for an assignment. So reading for leisure, reading for fun are those. This is where video games might come in. That, in a way, that's because they're fun, and sometimes there are literary elements. Now, how can we align that with reading is really our quest. So we have to pick topics that are popular, that are in demand. This is our efforts with a library Comic-Con, for instance, to just try to get a different angle so that the reading for fun is what's highlighted, not so much reading as a chore. It sort of feels like when we assign these prizes to reading, it almost devalues the act of it in itself, you know, because now you're reading to win something, when really you should be reading because you want to. So the intrinsic motivator, I would just say, encourage the entertainment aspect of it, because in the long run, I think reading is reading.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, certainly. I hope it helps.
I think that's all. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
certainly. Thank you. Thank you.
And I don't think we have any legal items. And any other comments? Okay, we'll adjourn.
I'm going to open up the meeting of the Camarillo Sanitary District. Let the record reflect that all board members are present. And do we have any amendments to the agenda?
No amendments.
Any public comments? No comment cards. Would anyone like to address the Camarillo Sanitary District? Seeing no one come forward, we're going to move to the consent calendar.
Move the approval.
I have a motion and a second. Please vote. And that passes 5-0. Down to departmental. No items. Legal counsel. No items. Comments from staff. No comments. Any comments from board members?
Yes.
Yes, Ms. Craven.
I'm going to ask this during the city council meeting too, but it has to do with CASA, so I'm going to start out by asking it here. And I'm asking it because I'm a former board member and president of CASA. I was on their board for 11 years. And now that Mr. Tremblay is on their board, I'm going to be asking, or I am asking, if it could be considered to look at the January meeting dates. The CASA meeting is January 23rd through, 22nd through 24th. And we have a meeting scheduled for the 22nd, I believe. I said that wrong. It's scheduled for the 21st through 23rd. When I was on the board, the council did pass a telecommuting policy, but it's very difficult with our setup to have somebody telecommute from a remote location such as that. Although it's possible, I mean, I did it from
Several times, yeah.
yeah, several times because the meetings conflicted. However, this year in particular, I think it might be easy so that we could switch. January is going to have 5 Wednesdays, and we are scheduled for the 8th and the 22nd, I believe it is. And I was wondering if it could be considered to change that second meeting to January 29th so that Mr. Tremblay could attend the board meeting and anybody else who wanted to. I know when during league, we always change it if there's a conflict, so I was just wondering if it could be considered this year.
We will, staff will certainly look at that and get
Okay.
back to you with a recommendation.
Thank you.
Any other comments from board members? No, I have one question of Public Works Director, Mr. Klotzel. When it comes to tours of the sanitation plant, do we do tours of the sanitation plant, or if someone's interested in getting a tour or wants to know more about it, how can we facilitate them?
Sure. No, we can organize that. And actually, if you wanted to put somebody directly in touch with Lucy, Lucy McGovern would be the point of contact to organize that.
Do we ever do, I know that last year I had an opportunity, prior to being elected, I had an opportunity to take a tour of the sanitary plant. I thought it was great. It was very, very enlightening, seeing that I didn't really know a lot about that aspect of the city business. I'm wondering if we want to possibly look at doing something like that, maybe once a year, where we can have kind of an open call to people who want to know more, as opposed to maybe facilitating one by one, but maybe having one event where we can rent a bus and people who are interested could go out there, and we just kind of do an open call to the community. I'm sure there would be, I'd hope, enough people to fill a short bus, at least.
I believe that's
Probably not the right term.
That's certainly something we can look at. I can discuss that with staff and come back with a
Okay, I'd appreciate that.
recommendation.
All right, any other comments? All right, I'm going to adjourn this meeting.
I'd like to call the Camarillo Successor Agency special meeting for September 11th to order, please. Let the record reflect that all the directors are present. Amendments to this agenda? Any amendments? We don't have any of that.
No amendments?
Public comments for the successor? That gets down to item 3, which is a consent calendar.
Move consent.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. That passes unanimously. Okay, Department, any comments from staff tonight on this? No comments. Any comments from board members tonight on this? No? So with that, we're adjourned. Okay, I'd like to call the regular City Council meeting for September 11th to order, please, and let the record reflect that all the council members are present. Amendments to this agenda?
No amendments?
No amendments, okay. Presentation, that gets us down to item 3. It's the consent calendar.
Move.
A
Second.
motion, and there's a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. That passes unanimously. All right, that gets us down to finance and investment policy 3.04. Jeannie, are you going to take that tonight?
Yes, Mayor, members of the City Council. You have before you tonight a resolution for the adoption and approval of an investment policy 3.04. Pursuant to the city's investment policy, the Investment Committee and the City Council review the policy annually by September of each fiscal year. The investment policy is subject to investment restrictions specified in the California Government Code and the Municipal Code. The city's primary objectives are to safeguard principal, ensure liquidity, and meet anticipated cash flow needs and obtain an appropriate rate of return. As with every year, the city met with the city's Finance Committee and Investment Committee, or in this case, the Investment Committee, on August 26th and reviewed the policy. At this time, the committee and staff is not recommending any changes. They did review the California Debt and Investment Advisory Commission guidelines and conferred with the city's asset manager, and he too is in agreement that we are consistent with the guidelines and compliant with the government code, so no recommended changes at this time.
Any questions? All right. Comments from any subcommittee members or anything? Or if not, a motion be in order.
I'll move to adopt a resolution approving the investment policy 3.04.
I'll second.
It's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. That passes unanimously. Public Works, Old Town Boulevard Crosswalk signs. Mr. Klotzel, will that be you?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I have a short presentation that we'll bring up to show some pictures. But while that's coming into focus, this item is to consider awarding a contract for the installation of flashing LED crosswalk signs at 2 locations on Ventura Boulevard in Old Town. The 2 locations, or first of the 2 is at the driveway into the parking lot that's used for farmers market and then also serves SciArt. And the other location is existing crosswalks at Glen Drive. There's a crosswalk on the west side and east side of the intersection of Glen Drive and Ventura Boulevard. Staff has discussed this with council several times at a study session, and then previous meeting in July. We sought and gained authority to issue requests for bids for installation of these signs. View of the locations, this is looking west at the driveway into Farmers Market area and SciArt, existing crosswalk here, And this existing sign will be replaced with a LED flashing sign that's pedestrian activated. Being that it's pedestrian activated, the location of the sign will also change to be accessible over at the crosswalk location where the curb ramp is to facilitate the crossing. Same thing in the other direction. This sign will be replaced at a different location up at the crosswalk so the pedestrians can push the button and activate the new sign, flashing LED sign that will replace this one. At the other location down at Glen, like I mentioned, there's 2 crosswalks, and as you can see in the picture, an existing crosswalk sign, and that will be replaced. It'll get a new post and 2 signs, one in each direction at this location, along with another post and 2 signs, one in each direction on this side of the road, on the north side of Ventura Boulevard. The goal and the expectation here is to enhance the visibility of the crosswalks themselves, and then with the flashing pedestrian activated lights to alert motorists that a pedestrian is entering or in the crosswalk. So the other view showing the other crosswalk there, same thing. This one existing sign will get relocated and replaced with 2 signs, one each facing each direction here, and then similar over on the south side of this corner, and a new sign location, again with 2 signs each way. So that's 4 post locations with 2 signs at each post, so a total of 8 flashing LED signs at this intersection serving both crosswalks. And we do expect to achieve that heightened awareness and visibility of motorists for pedestrians. So that's a total of 10 signs, 8 here at this intersection, the 2 down at the other driveway. And these signs are solar powered, and as I mentioned, push button activated, as shown on one picture with a pedestrian activating that sign, and 10 signs total. So back in July of this year, we advertised for bids to purchase and install the signs. We received 3 bids, the lowest bid being $32,289 from Crosstown Electrical and Data. And staff is recommending tonight to award a contract to Crosstown Electrical for the work. An appropriation of $37,289, including a $5,000 contingency for unforeseen additional work, is required for this action. The next steps is to, upon approval tonight, is to execute the contract documents, get that in place, the insurance, and then for the contractor to order and install the signs. We expect that to occur within 6 to 8 weeks, depending on the time needed for ordering and the company that manufactures them to put the order together and deliver that. That concludes my report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from anybody or comments to this particular? Mr. Mulchay?
I got 2 or 3 questions. Mr. Klotzel, the timing of the signs, for how long they illuminate, how is that determined? I'm curious.
So there is a standard for pedestrian crossing. I don't have the number off the top of my head. Basically, it's I think it's even feet per second of a standard that's required to achieve. I know that's the fact for the signalized intersection where we have a walk indication at the signal, but we'll apply the same type of standard here to, and this equipment is fully customized with timing. It can be adjusted, and so we'll set that accordingly, and we can adjust as necessary if needed.
And I assume the timing is would accommodate someone who's maybe handicapped or unable to walk at the average speed.
That's correct. I've had experience in the past where that standard is used, and it's either Caltrans or a state standard for that period, that feet per minute or feet per second. It won't necessarily accommodate your slowest of slow persons.
Right.
It ends up being, somewhat of an average, reasonable time.
Right.
For the typical and accessible, challenged person to cross also. So,
okay.
And again, it's fully customizable. If needed, we can adjust that.
And then my other question pertained to specifically the intersection in front of where the farmers market is held. You had mentioned there's going to be 2 signs, one facing, what direction is it? I guess the east, and the other one facing west.
Right.
What about if I'm crossing from the side where, say, the farmer's market is being held, and I'm going to the opposing side, is there there's no light there, but is there a button?
No, there will be lighted signs on either side of Ventura Boulevard.
Okay, they're both going to be there. Okay, I was under the impression that the one facing west was going to be moved up in front of, on the western side of the entrance that you would pull into the farmer's market. Does that make sense? Like where the current crosswalk sign is now, I think. Can you go back to the picture? Maybe I saw it or interpreted it. Go back. So the other one.
Okay, but this one is going to essentially move, I don't know how many, 10, 12 or so feet.
Right.
It needs to be installed over here so the pedestrian can reach the button and activate it.
Right.
And then the next one is going to be moved up. And
Truck's hiding where it's going to be, isn't it?
Okay, so you're moving. Okay.
It'll be over. Exactly. It'll be
All
up
right.
at where the crosswalk is, which is more appropriate. I mean, right now this sign is here, and the arrow's pointing down where a pedestrian really should not be. Right. Where that arrow's pointing. Right. It's an alert. Advisory warning sign for approaching traffic. So the more correct, and then with the pedestrian activated button, it needs to be over at the crosswalk.
Right.
So that'll be there.
Okay. I misheard you. I misinterpreted what you were saying. I thought you were implied that the sign there that we're looking at was going to stay in its relative position.
No.
Okay. That's all I got. Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else with any questions?
I'm happy to see these improvements, and I will move the suggested action.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. That passes unanimously. New business. Okay, well, that brings us down to new business oral communication. We'll start with the city manager. Anything tonight?
Yes, thank you very much. So as you all know, the mayor gave the State of the City speech last Thursday. We had 180 in attendance at Spanish Hills, which is one of our largest crowds ever. Very happy with the response for people attending that speech. The tape of the meeting will be available on our website next week. Final edits are being made to make sure that we have good, clear audio and good, clear visual on that whole speech. Last Saturday, we had our annual emergency expo. I know I attended, and several of you did. Very good event. John Frazier always does a good job with that, and good turnout. Also, very, very fine event. Today's DeSalter groundbreaking. Another fine event. Thank you for all attending. Had a good turnout with the people that were invited there from all over the county, including our supervisor, Kelly Long. The speeches were amazing. Mayor, thank you very much. And Charlotte ensured that she would not give a dry speech and pulled out every pun possible. Every pun possible related to water. It was very good. I couldn't even do that. So she did a great job.
Kept your interest up.
Absolutely did. This Saturday, yes, and it flowed. That's right. Okay, that's enough. Time out. Okay. So this Saturday at 11 o'clock to 3 o'clock, we're going to have the Sheriff's Department is hosting the annual Coppers and Choppers event. You really need to go out and see all the apparatus that your taxes are paying for because it's amazing. They can do a lot. And it's a great event. If you have children, they have all kinds of stuff in the hangar, and it's amazing in there. I mean, it's just crawling with people, and it's a great event. I enjoy going every year.
Tell people it's at the airport.
It is at the airport. There will be signs up, lots of parking, so you don't need to worry about that. On Sunday, and I keep talking about the free concerts at the library because it's kind of a sleeper thing. You really have to pay attention when they come up, but they really are special. So this Sunday, this coming Sunday at 2 o'clock, there's going to be a jazz band playing called the Barrel House Wailers. They specialize in Prohibition-era jazz. They are a great band. I enjoy seeing them in Ventura a lot. So that's at 2 o'clock. At the library. You are encouraged to go early and get a seat because it usually, all these concerts fill up. And that's the end of my report.
Okay, thank you. Counselor, anything tonight for you?
No, nothing tonight.
Nothing? Okay. All right, we'll start with Susan. Do you want to start us off tonight, Susan?
Sure.
Please.
Okay, on September 3rd, I attended the Streets and Transportation Committee meeting. On September 5th, I was at the State of the City and was equally impressed at the turnout. And Mayor Kildee did a fantastic job. Yeah. Thank you. September 5th was our special council meeting, and September 11th, this morning, I was at the groundbreaking and was equally impressed by Mrs. Craven's speech, and was really impressed with the turnout there. And you know, I haven't been involved in the desalter as long as many of you have, but it is really exciting, and it's really nice to see it started. And I'm really proud of all the work done before I got here. So, and the only thing I wanted to mention this Saturday, where did I put it? I knew this would happen. It is the Out of Darkness Walk. September is Suicide Prevention Month. So this Saturday here at Constitution Park is the walk to raise money for suicide prevention. I think registration begins at 7:45 and the walk is from 9 to 12. So we'd love to see people out there. I think we really need to do all we can to prevent suicide. It's really on the rise, and it's an epidemic, and so I'd love to see everybody out there. And that's all I have.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Craven?
Oh, I attended a special council meeting. I attended the RDP meeting yesterday morning, and it was really interesting. It was called Dude, Where's My Beach? And Captain Chisholm had brought commanding officer of Navy Base Ventura County had brought this up to us before. And I know the city of Port Hueneme and other cities have had a problem with beach erosion. The problem at Point Magoo is that it's eroded right up to the very end of the runway, and it's also in another place eroded up to the small building that controls all of the lighting and radar and everything else for the runway. And so it looks like RDP is going to be taking this issue on. I can't tell you everything about it. It's about a 45-minute talk, but it was very interesting, and I really learned a lot at that meeting. I learned so much that I guess and it was also a hard day, and I did not attend the Camarillo Ranch Board meeting. Have no excuse. What can I say? I hope it went well. I'll hear it from Mr. Mulchay. I have, do I need to ask again about the CASA dates? Okay, we got that. I have one other thing, and that is when we do close this evening, I would like to close in memory of Fred Drosten. Some people may not know what he did a lot. He was a realtor, and he was here in town with a real estate company and a property management company for many, many years. I first met him the day after the Camarillo Daily News announced that the Christmas parade was going to be shutting down because the people who'd worked on it for more than 20 years had all decided it had gotten to be too big, and they were tired, and so it was going to, and I believe the chairman died. So I got a call the next day from Harold Kinch, who was the editor of the paper at the time, and he said, Charlotte, I just got off the phone with Fred Drosten, and he is going to be the new chairman of the Camarillo Parade, Christmas Parade, and I told him that you would be a very good person to do publicity. And I said, oh, well, he said, well, you better call him. He's waiting for your phone call. So I called him and I met him, and he and He pulled together a good team of people, of chairmen. He continued the tradition of only having 2 meetings a year, one about 2 months before the parade and one a month afterwards. And he brought it back to life and changed the location. Another problem had been that it started at the Carmen Plaza Shopping Center, went across the freeway down Ventura Boulevard, back up Arneal, and it ended, I think, on Pickwick. And, or maybe it ended farther than Pickwick, maybe Ponderosa. It did end in that shopping center at Ponderosa. So Fred did a lot that way, and he started the parade, and then at the end of the parade, he said, "Charlotte, I've got to go now. Can you wrap it up?" And I said, "Sure, but why don't you come over to the award ceremony?" He said, "No, I have to get to the Valley." He said, "My daughter died last night, and so I have to go and take care of it and of the arrangements." And I said, "Well, why didn't you call some of us to do what you were doing today, be the starter?" He said, "No, I told everybody I'd bring this parade to fruition, and I had to follow through." And I was kind of blown away by that statement. But the following year, he received from the chamber one of their top awards for, not for bringing the parade back, but for being a businessman here in town. I don't have the name of that. The next time I came across something about him was when we were doing the Vietnam Veterans Next of Kin, the Vietnam Veterans Program, and one young man, his name was Chris Drews, whose father, I believe, was a physician, and he was, just as he was starting to come back from Vietnam, the plane crashed, and he and his brother and mother lived in Camarillo. They were not from Camarillo, but she stayed, and apparently she married Fred Droston, and then that marriage didn't work out. But Chris Drews talked to Kathy and I for quite a while, Kathy Talley, and he said, "You know, the thing I remember is they then left Camarillo, but he said for years and years, Fred would take us up to the sand dunes, and we'd do lots of things that most boys who don't have fathers don't get to do." And I have always thought he was an extraordinary person because of the commitments he felt, no matter what came up in life. And so I would like to close in his memory.
Sure, he was in the real estate in Camarillo for decades.
Yes.
Yes, decades.
50 maybe? 50
Yes.
years?
I can't remember when
I think
it
that's
was.
what it says.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing. All right, Mr. Tremblay.
Sure. As far as meetings attended, August 29th, Kathy and I actually went to Throwback Thursday at Camarillo Ranch. It was a good crowd, and there were a lot of food trucks there, so it was good. September 4, EDC Executive Committee. On September 5, the State of the City presentation and a City Council special meeting. On September 6th, last week, a VCTC meeting. And on September 11th, today, the desalter groundbreaking. And I just especially want to thank staff, and in particular Lucy McGovern, for literally years of efforts to get us to this point. Great kudos to Dave Klotzel, to Tom Fox, who's no longer here with the city. But Lucy, my understanding is that this project, you've worked on this project for literally 25 years, if my math is not escaping me. Maybe it's even 26 years. So I just think that congratulations are in order, and thank you very much for all your efforts. And Mr. Klotzel, thank you as well. One pending issue, I've had a number of people, in fact I had folks at the Emergency Expo in the park, I'm sorry, I attended that as well last weekend, asked me about the status of the stoplights on at West Ponderosa at Earl Joseph and Camino Tierra Santa. And they had been told that the city had approved the stoplights, but that there was some hang-up with the state. Conversely, I have been informed that it's really a matter where the city has already approved the stoplights, and the developer is now working with Edison, and I think they're anticipated to be installed by the end of this year. The reason I'm asking again is there is a sense of, I think, legitimate urgency on this because of the way traffic is manifesting out there. Those signals are very much needed. Mr. Kotzel, can you tell me what the two questions? One is, what's the current status? And number two, why the delay? Is it because of the state or is it because of Edison? Just so I know, so I can respond to
we're not aware, as far as I know, of any delays having to do with the state. There is a process through Edison that the developer has to go through to get approval of the electrical connection. It's a separate metered connection to run the signals. So we understand that they're in process with that with Edison. Yes, the plans that get reviewed and approved by the city to make sure everything meets standards have been approved and are at that step where they're working on getting the Edison clearance to move forward with the construction and put in that service pedestal. So I did talk with the developer's representative. It's been a few weeks ago, but confirmed that contracts are in place with a contractor. And then the longest lead time item is the poles, which that end of the year is the goal, depending on when they actually take delivery of the signal poles, which takes quite a few weeks, a couple months at least to manufacture those and deliver them. That's the critical path for schedule that we don't know a definite date on that. And I don't have any current information on status with the Edison approval. Okay. I just know that it's in the developer's court is working through that.
What I would request is that perhaps you bring this back at the next meeting. I'd request a status report on this and also a response to what, if anything, can we do, the city do right now to accelerate that process, whether it's at Edison, which it sounds like it is, but what, if anything, can we do? I feel a sense of some urgency on this. Sure. So I would request that you come back at the next meeting with a status report.
Sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Moshe?
I would second Tony's suggestion and desire to see that status report. For meetings attended, Tuesday, September 3rd, I attended a CRF ad hoc committee meeting. Thursday, September 5th, I attended the State of the City with all of you, and also attended the special council meeting later that evening. Tuesday, September 10th, that was yesterday, I attended a CRF meeting. Unfortunately, they had losses of $12,000 for the last month, or for July, I should say. That was, I guess, good news in light of the fact that they budgeted a $15,000 loss for the month of July. July, apparently, from my questioning of the CRF and in regards to their finances, July is traditionally a very slow month for them. And then August, September, October, and even through November, it really starts to pick up steam. And staff had indicated that they are pretty much jam-packed with reservations from August through November. But I guess for whatever reason, July seems to be rather light. It's also the last month that they were on their old format when it came to selling. They had since reverted to a new format, and because they sell everything about a year in advance, if not sometimes more, it takes a full year to fully churn that cycle. So not good news, but better news than what was anticipated. But we'll continue to work through this process.
July is a slow month because they don't get many bookings, new bookings at that time, even though they're very busy with bookings that were made previously. So there isn't money coming in, is what you're saying?
Yeah, there's not a lot of events actually being held at the ranch house. They're very busy when it comes to booking future events in the month of July, but they're particularly weddings. There are not a lot of weddings that are held, I guess,
really?
in the month of July is what is the explanation I got, because they are realizing their revenue as they earn it, and they don't truly earn it until they actually hold that event. And so when it comes to recognizing revenue, the revenue they recognized in the month was in July was it was also lower than anticipated. I think approximately $6,000, $7,000 lower than what they had budgeted. On everything else, they were, their expenses were a little bit lower than anticipated. Other revenue was a little bit higher. Their Throwback Thursday was actually a success for the month of July, and they netted approximately $4,000 for that one Throwback Thursday alone, which is terrific news. On to today, September 11th, I attended the DeSalter groundbreaking, and I was, to echo a lot of the sentiment up here on the dais, I was privy to the more recent history of the DeSalter, but I did not fully grasp and understand the real timeline. And Charlotte, you really went back in time and you kind of gave everyone a very thorough understanding of where this started and the trudging that occurred along the way. And although I'm the one that got to put the shovel in the ground, I don't really, honestly, I don't deserve a lot of credit for this thing coming to fruition, other than putting my vote in at the tail end. A lot of credit does go to Lucy, to Tom Fox, to all the city managers, city council members, public works directors, that not just currently, but over the last 25-ish years. There's a lot. I did not fully grasp or understand the amount of work and red tape and
paperwork.
The work that had to go into this. And it was definitely a major lift over many different groups of people over a long period of time. So kudos. Then thank you for all those people that came before us who kind of helped lay the groundwork for that. And lastly, I'd be remiss to not mention today and the historical significance of today. September 11th, for me, touched me. I was relatively young. I was in high school at the time. I very, very, very distinctly remember where I was, what I was doing, and the initial feeling I had when my TV program was interrupted with a special breaking news bulletin, that day just hit me really, really hard, and it still sticks with me every year when we have to revisit it. So, I just want to say that I hope that we can also close a memory of all those lives that we lost on that fateful day, not just at Ground Zero, which is what most people remember, but we lost people at the Pentagon. We lost people on Flight 93. So, and not only that, but also all the lives that were lost, along with family members of a lot of my friends who had to go over to Iraq and Afghanistan and to put their lives on the line for us. And see one of my college friends have to lose their brother over there is heartbreaking. I don't wish that upon anyone. So I'd appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay, I had a Streets and Trans committee meeting with Ms. Santangelo. I attended that. VRSD meeting Thursday, September 5th. I did give the State of the City on Thursday, the 5th. And talk a little bit about this. This morning before we dedicated this Psalter, I had the honor and the privilege to be actually the keynote speaker on a speech about patriotism at the UPS school, and that's the one off Dunnigan. And it's a school of, I think, about 700 students, and about all 700, it's K through 8. And there are many military personnel there as well. And it was really great to see those kids stand up and be led in the Pledge of Allegiance. And I don't know if any of you have ever had the pleasure of hearing about 700 kids simultaneously recite the pledge, but it's really something to behold. And it was a great event. Again, they do that every year, so if anybody has time or would like to go to that, it's there was several members of the public that attended that too. So the patriotism is alive and well in our city, and I was really honored to be there and to help give that speech. Also, as all of us were there for the desalter, I'd like to thank the staff, and I've been honored to be part of this for most of the time here. And there were many years I wasn't sure we were going to be able to do this. It was probably the biggest uphill push I think that the city has ever tried to do and to pull this off, and we were able to pull this off. And I personally want to thank Councilmember Charlotte Craven and Councilmember Craven's dogged determination on this project was really, really important. And I know she spent countless hours on this and really believed in the project. And Charlotte, I just want to thank you for what you've done for this. It's going to be a great, great thing for the Camarillo residents and the staff that spent all this time going through this. Here, job well done. And, it's man, I just can't believe I'm still in a state of shock that we had the groundbreaking today. I truly am, but we did, and we pulled it off, and, some really great things are going to happen now. So I believe that's all I have. I know we do have a study session with 2 items, the Old Town encroachment and the records retention schedule. So with that, we'll recess and come back to.
I could announce the closed sessions now.
I'm sorry.
That's
Closed
okay.
session. Why don't we go ahead and
Yeah.
talk about that too?
Right,
If we have any time.
right. We'll have closed sessions at some point later this evening. It's public employee performance evaluations. The authority is Government Code Section 54957. The titles are City Manager and City Attorney.
Okay, so with that, we are in recess. right, I'd like to reconvene the city council meeting, please, and let the record reflect that all council members are present. I'm going to ask Ms. Santangelo, could you lead us tonight, please?
Please stand. Hand over heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, presentations. We have one tonight. It's the California Coastal Cleanup. Do we have a, hi, welcome.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This presentation will be given by Jessica McReynolds with Charles Abbott and Associates, who provide stormwater project management services for the city.
Do you want to move that microphone down a little bit so we can all hear you?
Okay. Go ahead. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members, and staff. I am Jessica McReynolds, the City of Camarillo Stormwater Assistant, and I will be providing information about this year's Coastal Cleanup Day event in Camarillo. As always, the third Saturday in September, this year's event will be held on September 21st, 2019, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. California Coastal Cleanup Day is known as one of the largest volunteer events held on one single day in the world. In fact, in 1993, California Coastal Cleanup Day was recognized by the Guinness Book of World Records as the largest garbage collection ever organized, with 50,405 volunteers. Since then, the reach of Coastal Cleanup Day has steadily spread inland to cities like Camarillo. Most of the marine debris that we find on our beaches actually starts as urban trash or street litter. So this continued effort to stop trash where it starts has actually increased the amount of trash picked up per person each year. Last year at Camarillo's 2 locations, we had over 260 volunteers remove over 900 pounds of trash, with glass and plastic being the largest quantities of trash collected. Over the last 5 years, Camarillo has averaged between 100 to 130 volunteers at each site and has removed over 4,000 pounds of trash and recyclables since 2014. Although the Cayugas Creek site tends to have less volunteers each year than the other site, larger quantities of trash are removed. Last year, in Ventura County, over 2,500 volunteers removed 11,742 pounds of trash and recyclables from over 22 inland and coastal sites. Statewide, last year, almost 75,000 volunteers removed over 800,000 pounds of trash. As can be seen in this table, the top item collected in California was again the cigarette butt, with over 150,000 collected statewide at last year's event. In the United States, over 225,000 volunteers worked together to collect and remove over 3 million pounds of trash from inland and coastal sites. Internationally, approximately 1 million volunteers removed over 23 million pounds of trash and recyclables. Similar to California, the #1 collected item around the globe was cigarette butts. Camarillo will be again hosting 2 locations for this year's event, and I want to take the time to thank the council and city staff for making this possible. One cleanup site is in the Mission Oaks Barranca, which is located below Mission Oaks Park at Mission Oaks Boulevard and Oak Canyon Road. Volunteers should meet in the grass area next to the tennis courts. The second location is in Cayugas Creek. Volunteers should meet above the creek at the intersection of Creekside Road and Paseo del Campo. There will again be a Coastal Cleanup Day site in the Beardsley Wash at the corner of Beardsley and Wright Road. The County of Ventura will be manning that location. Since we are trying to make this a zero-waste event, we encourage volunteers to bring their own reusable water bottles and gloves, but we will supply those items to them along with a data card to record statistics on what they will be removing from the waterway. This information is put into the Ocean Conservancy's international database. As it may be a warm day, we also encourage volunteers to apply protective sunscreen and wear appropriate attire. The terrain in the creek is not suitable for strollers or small children, so we do encourage volunteers with small children to come to the Mission Oaks Barranca site. Also, as a token of our appreciation for their service, we will have a limited number of T-shirts and metal straws to give to the volunteers to come to help clean up our coastal site, or our waterways. I want to thank the City Council and City staff for again supporting this important event in Camarillo and in helping to keep our environment clean. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for being here. It's always a great event. I've had the pleasure of attending several times, and it's much needed, and it's really a feel-good event, too, that you're doing something good.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Any other comments? Okay.
Well, mine is, I've helped several times, and cigarette butts are always the thing you pick up most. You don't have to look very far to find a dozen, and once you find a dozen, you find 2 dozen, and you think you've got them all, and then something, maybe your shoe will move the sand or the dirt, and a whole bunch more pop up.
Yeah.
Amazing. Ms. Tremblay?
I think the thing that surprises me the most is finding a preponderance of cigarette butts in Mission Oaks, Barranca. And it just boggles my mind, particularly not only from the littering standpoint, but also from a fire safety standpoint. So, anyway, thank you. This is a good thing that we're doing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. All right, that gets us down to public comments. First, I have Susan Whitewood. And again, Susan, if you keep it to 3 minutes, I'd appreciate it.
I sure will. Good evening, everybody, council members, Mayor Kildee, and staff. My name is Susan Whitewood, and I'm with the County of Ventura Behavioral Health Department. I'm here tonight to tell you about the No Place Like Home voter-approved initiative for housing for homeless and mentally ill. The County of Ventura Behavioral Health Department is the lead agency. We are the eligible applicant for these funds. The State of California Department of Community Development is issuing 4 rounds of funding to build new housing units for affordable housing units for homeless and mentally ill residents of the county. Right now, we're in the process of round 2. Under round 1 of funding, the county submitted 2 strong applications. Both were accepted by the state. Both applications for funding fell apart for different reasons. We don't know yet what round 2 will bring for us, but it's approximately $76 million that we can qualify to apply for. So I wanted to make sure that you're aware that the city of Camarillo is also eligible to secure this funding for housing. I brought some fact sheets and my business card, which I can leave with you. The fact sheets talk about deadlines and eligibility requirements and the types of projects that can be built with this funding. Do you have questions for me?
When's the next round coming up, do you know?
So round 2 of funding is due to the state in November. Round 3 will be about this time next year, September 2020. And there'll be 4 rounds total. There's also a small amount of non-competitive funding available. It's $1.6 million. Again, the county is the lead agency, but we don't build housing, so we would partner with a developer.
Mr. Tremblay?
Thanks for coming this evening. Could you just briefly describe the criteria by which the applications are judged?
Actually, on the fact sheet that I provided you, it's pretty extensive. These are loans that we would receive from the state of California, 55-year loans. We work with housing developers to create competitive applications based on the criteria that's found at the state website. And there's a link on that fact sheet that would tell you what all the criteria is.
And if you're in just one other question, if I can, if you're in an urban area with a disproportionately higher number of the population, does an increased percentage of the funds get targeted to that? Or, in other words, is our area somewhat at a disadvantage in trying to procure these funds because of having a lesser population?
They are competitive. The County of Ventura is actually competing with other large counties throughout the state. There's large counties, then there's the counties that are too big to fail, like Los Angeles. We are at the bottom of the large county group for competitive funding. Yeah, exactly. But we had 2 really strong applications under round 1, and I expect to develop very strong applications under round 2. Hopefully we'll see projects in the cities of Oxnard, Ventura, Fillmore, and possibly one other that would serve veterans as well. The No Place Like Home funding builds affordable housing, and then within those projects, a certain percentage of the units are dedicated to homeless and mentally ill. You're not allowed to dedicate the entire project to that subpopulation. They believe the thinking is that a scattered site would blend better into the community than to congregate all in one spot.
So if the county is awarded some of this funding, then do the cities then have to compete for that funding?
So it's not a grant, they're loans. The way that the money works is that we actually, the voters back in November approved the ballot initiative, and so the state earmarked a part of our Mental Health Services Act funding. So a piece of our county budget dedicated towards services for the mentally ill was set aside specifically for housing. And so if we don't secure that funding, we actually lose it. But again, the county and the city don't necessarily build housing. So if the city was interested in building this type of housing in the city of Camarillo, you would identify a housing developer. We work traditionally with nonprofit housing developers such as Community Economic Development Corporation, Mini Mansions, Mercy House is another one, Housing Authority, there's more. We work with those groups to develop competitive applications, and then we apply to the state for these loans.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next, we have Barbara Williams. And again, 3 minutes, if you would, please.
This will probably be my last time speaking before the City Council, so I hope you will listen this time. The city's poor management of its resources and the decisions made by this council and previous councils played a key role in my decision to move to Florida to be near my son and his wife. You don't listen, and you normally just do what the staff recommends, justifying your decisions using incorrect or biased info. For a long time, the people have not been the city. The motto of the city is no longer valid. Charlotte, you mostly vote because that's the way the city has done in the past, and things in your mind are working. Well, they're not. Kevin, the only time I heard you really speak up was when someone pointed out the Park and Rec District and the city do not get along. You felt this disrespected your father. They do not get along. Tony, always the lawyer. Your long justifications to support your view are often flawed. You really need to do better homework and quit going along with what the staff thinks is the way to go. Susan, your socialist ideas are not what the city wants or needs, and you blocked me on Facebook because I said something you did not like. Not very tolerant, are you? And finally, Sean, I supported you and voted for you, and then you got elected. The only change you proposed that was realized was streaming of the city council meetings. You fell in lockstep with the old guard. You support everyone else's views except your own. I thought you were going to be different. The council has botched the old fire station, the old courthouse, and the management of the Camarillo Ranch, and the districting fiasco. That brings up another problem, our city attorney. Let's say you need a new one that will give good advice. Now let's talk about the development of the Camarillo Springs Golf Course. You were conned big time. The majority of the community does not support it. That green space is a wildlife habitat and corridor, mountain lions, Canadian geese, the endangered gnatcatcher, and many more. We're talking about land that was historically farmland and used for oil and gas well drilling. To disturb the land is to disturb carcinogens that will become airborne and affect the community. That is half seniors. Traffic is horrendous, as evidenced by the Hill fire evacuation. It should never have been approved to move forward. The development will cause lawsuits and be harmful to the people and the environment. It's a disaster waiting to happen. So it is time to listen to the people and do what is right. Less development and manage the city's resources as though they are your own. Force the city staff to provide all points of view and do your own homework to discover other sides. I hope you do what is best for the city. Thank you.
We have Matt Lorimer.
Good evening, City Council and people at home. Today is the 18th anniversary where 2,996 Americans died to a terrorist attack in Pennsylvania, Pentagon, and New York City. You know, every city, the President of the United States, even Kelly Long acknowledged that. You have a city manager that makes $300,000. This city attempted no thing on Facebook, no media thing, no outreach, only at the last minute, because you were too busy celebrating the desalter plant. What kind of city puts on an event where 3,000 Americans died and you don't have the time or the guts? Kevin, you've been in office for 20 years. You're second in charge. You should have had an event for the people who died in this country. It's unacceptable. City Council, what are you thinking? You know? It's unacceptable. Next thing I want to talk about, the Camarillo Ranch. What a joke. These people, this is a city-owned property. They've been losing money. There's all kind of shenanigans going down there, right? And you had an ad hoc committee. Sean, you're on that committee. Charlotte, you're on that committee. They insulted you, and you know what they did? They showed up, and Charles Devin, basically, he said, I don't know how to run a venue. The next person, Martin, he said, I don't know how to read a P&L. And here you are spending months negotiating with people who have no clue what they're doing, and they're losing money. What's wrong with you people? Seriously, you're supposed to represent government. Camarillo Ranch is a failure. They need to be fired. Find a new organization. Figure it out. Unacceptable. The senior center. For years, I've been asking this city. Every city spent $250,000, and the previous city council did nothing. Every city gave, you did nothing. So you know what it wanted? You didn't want a senior center, so you asked for a study. You paid the money, and you thought it was Santa Claus, and it came back big. Well, guess what? Now we have to build a gym. Well, guess what? You should build the senior center. The second half, they can save money, but now you want to float a bond. I know Tony is trying to do his best. I know you want to float a bond. Who's going to pay that? The taxpayers? When you're gone, are you going to cause a financial problem? You're elected officials. You know, seniors for years have needed a senior center. I've been an advocate, and I may be in Texas, but damn it, I'm going to speak up. There are people who deserve it. It should be built. Enough wasting time. There isn't enough money to build a gym and a senior center. Build the senior center, save the money for the gym. Do not create a taxpayer and bankrupt the park district or put a financial burden on the citizens. Come on, build it, folks. It's your job. Will you get off your ass and do something?
Lorena Sarwatari. Again, if you could put the microphone down a little bit for you.
Sure. I'm bearing gifts today, and if this is for you, no, can you not stop the clock yet, please?
Give it to the city clerk there.
Yes, so this is for all of you regarding Constitution Week. Let me see. So, and I would like my basket back. Sorry. You can start the timer now. In 1787, the Constitution was created, and it was made up of 7 articles. By 1791, 10 Bill of Rights were added because the citizens thought that they weren't covered in the Constitution. Throughout 200 years, in a total of 27 amendments have been added to the Constitution. Now, according to the Tribune McCormick Foundation survey, only 1 in 100 adults can name all 5 freedoms guaranteed in the First Amendment. Thomas Jefferson said, "Educate and inform the whole mass of people, and they are our only sure reliance for the preservation of our liberty." And let me tell you, being an immigrant from another country, from Mexico, We don't have the liberties that we have here. When I came to the United States and I learned about the history of the United States, I loved it. Because in my country, I wasn't taught anything. I was in Mexico 2 years ago. My nephew worked as a lawyer for the state, and he drove an hour and a half to a town to put a sign on a home, on a ranch property, saying that the state was going to recall that because they needed it for something else. And they did not need it for anything for the city. We was the person who worked on the government that liked the ranch and wanted for himself. We don't have that here. But if we don't teach our children, if we don't educate our people about the liberties and rights and freedoms that we have in the Constitution, we're doomed. Now, I give you a booklet in the little package, and then in here it says that in 2004, Public Law 108-447, Section 111, was passed requiring the following. Each educational institution that receives federal funds for fiscal year shall hold an educational program on the United States Constitution on September 17 of such year for the students served by the educational institution. And I work as an aide for the schools here in Pleasant Valley School District. They don't teach the Constitution anymore, and it's sad. So we have a parking here, it's called Constitution Park. I wish maybe for next year you can put a program together. I can come and help and gather people to teach our people of Camarillo about the Constitution. And please, those are for each one of you to keep. And can I pass some of those little gifts to the people in here? Thank you so much.
Okay.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Yeah, I think this is the third year somebody has come to us and talked to us about Constitution Day. 1 year it was a woman from Ventura, and I forget who was here last year. But I used to put on Flag Day programs every year. Your Honor, you might remember those. It's been quite a while. Mm-hmm. It got to where it was very difficult because Flag Day is on June 14th, and June 14th is after school, has been let out for the year, or at least it was at that time. And we couldn't get students to come, we couldn't get teachers in the programs to come, even though they had some wonderful things that were going on. So I would be willing, not as a big city thing, but as something, to try for a Constitution Day program next year, and I would put my effort into that, the same amount of effort as I used to put into Flag Day, and I think it would be very educational.
Yeah, that'd be great. Absolutely, I'll help you. Yeah. Okay, is there anybody else that would like to address the council? Okay, with that, we are going to go down to the next item. It's a tentative tract map 5969.
Mr. Mayor?
You have a staff? Yes.
I'm going to need to recuse myself from this agenda item. My family business and one in which I'm currently in negotiations to acquire is no less than 38 feet from the property in question on Constitution Avenue. So at this time, that likely presents a conflict of interest. It's definitely within the 500-foot zone. So at this point, I'm going to recuse myself from any discussion and or vote on this agenda item. If someone can please get me afterwards.
Okay. Okay, so with that, do we have a staff report?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. John Novi will be presenting this item.
Thank you, Mayor Kildee, members of the City Council. This item is a time extension for tentative tract map 5969, more commonly known as Camarillo Village Homes. The property is located at the northeast corner of Lewis Road and Pleasant Valley Road, as seen here on the map. The map divided the property into two lots, Lots 1 and Lot 2. Lot 1 was further subdivided as a condo subdivision and has a residential plan development permit attached to it, RPD 196. Lot 2 has a 12,000 square foot commercial with 24 rental apartment unit complex under CUP 369. The City Council approved or certified an environmental impact report, approved a general plan amendment, a change of zone, and the tentative tract map back in August of 2016. The tract map had a 24-month expiration date on it when approved by the City Council. On September 20th, 2016, the Planning Commission approved RPD 196 for the approval of 285 for-sale townhomes, including 28 units for moderate income. The Planning Commission also approved CUP 369 to construct 24 commercial residential mixed-use apartments, including 3 of which were for low income. On November 5th, the City Council approved development allotments for all 285 townhomes and development allotments for 21 of the apartment units because the 3 low-income units did not need to have allotments. On October 2018, the City Council did extend the tract map for an additional 12 months with a vote from 3 to 2 and added a condition at the time for continued property maintenance that reads that the Camarillo Village Homes LLC will maintain the property on a regularly scheduled basis in good condition and in accordance with all city codes, including regular vegetation removal to avoid potential pest infestations. Staff has been keeping an eye on the property and has confirmed as of today that the property is in good order and the applicant has been keeping up on that condition for regular property maintenance. The applicant did file a request for a time extension on August 12, 2019. Per the code, when an extension is filed, they are automatically granted a 60-day extension for processing. That's why we are past the August 24th date, and the map is still active at this point because we're in that grace period. Staff is recommending an additional 1-year time extension to the tentative tract map 5969 for Camarillo Village Homes to include all previous conditions, including the condition imposed by the council last year for continued property maintenance. That concludes my presentation, and in addition, there is an applicant in the audience for additional questions.
I have a question. I'll start it off now. For this 1-year extension, if it's granted, what do we think will happen within that 1 year? I mean, is there some projections within that year?
Yes. Yeah. The applicant has actually submitted their final map for compliance. It has been reviewed by staff, and it is very close to being approved by staff and sent over to the county for recordation.
And my understanding is last year there was an issue there with an infestation, and within this extension, would that also extend their agreement to continue to eradicate or work on that issue that is before them?
That is correct. Staff has reached out to the adjacent property owner who raised the concerns previously and made sure that that property owner is aware of what's going on and to see if they had any additional concerns. We've reached out to the applicant for the property maintenance, and they've maintained it in good order. The condition that was imposed by the City Council on the last time extension is going to stay in effect, the one for regular property maintenance. Staff is going to be keeping an eye on that, and I believe the property owner is also being proactive on making sure that that is in compliance.
Do you have anything to add to that, Jim?
I do, yes. So in regards to your first question, we understand that the applicant is pursuing final recordation of the map that's proposed for extension, but we also understand that they're simultaneously actively selling the property to other potential developers.
Oh, I see.
KB Home has expressed interest recently in potentially acquiring the property for potentially changing the project, and would have to go through other entitlement applications that would be different than what's currently approved.
And they will still be maintaining that property?
Yes.
To the level it is now?
They'll have to, correct.
All right. So are there any other questions, Ms. Santangelo?
I had the same questions about the maintenance. Well, I guess you kind of answered my question, too, because I was going to ask if there was any plans to, other than what we've seen so far, if there was any, and it sounds like it could be a completely different project.
It could be. So there are the existing entitlements and approvals in place, but the existing ownership team is actively marketing the property for sale. And if another developer acquires the property, typically what they do is they'll enter into escrow and they'll want to change it to suit their needs and desires, and they'll have to go through entitlements, and they usually do not close escrow until any modifications or updated permits are approved or not.
Does it make the property more valuable with this extension?
Yes.
It continues the value as it is. It doesn't
Correct.
make it more valuable than it is now.
That's correct. However, without the existing entitlements, it would be less valuable.
Because they wouldn't be, they wouldn't have this approval?
They wouldn't have vested development rights. That's correct.
Is there any other questions? I'm sorry.
I also have a question for our attorney. I don't know if you want me to wait or just staff questions now.
Yeah, why don't you proceed?
Are there legal ramifications for us if we don't grant the extension?
You have the discretion to grant conditionally or to deny.
Any other questions this time? Any questions? Okay, this is an advertised public hearing, so I'm going to open the public hearing. Let's see, I do have one card. Matt Lorimer, that's here.
So the rules need to apply to everyone. So let's go over some things that have happened here. So remember during the election, I said there was problems with Mr. Morgan going around being code enforcement officer. I asked for investigation. Your city attorney said, I'm not doing one. I don't have to answer it at all because the rules don't apply to councilmen. Last year, Tony, remember Kevin, Charlotte, you said you wouldn't do an extension. You know why? There's rules and regulations. So if you're at home and you live at home, the city council needs to be asked whether they're going to follow the rules. When you say you're not going to give an extension, you don't give another extension. You know why? Because you have rules and regulations. When you don't follow rules and regulations, we don't make special exceptions, do we? Unless you're a city councilman and you go around acting like a code enforcement officer and you won't do an investigation. But this has to do with everything. This city has got a double rule going. And how it works here is you're a developer. Some city councilmen want to let it go. You know something? You have a responsibility to follow the rules. It's bad enough the city manager doesn't follow the rules half the time. So here's the point. The point is very simple. You gave an extension. You weren't supposed to give an extension. You said, I'm not going to do it again. Did you say it's going to be more valuable? Did I hear more of it? Yes, yes. So now you're going to give them, are you going to give them extensions so they can make more money? So you're doing a special carve out for developers. If you live in the city of Camarillo, the city council doesn't work for you because if they vote in favor of giving an extension, what they're saying is the rules don't apply to them. Like the last election where you didn't do an investigation on Mr. Morgan pretending to be a code enforcement officer and going around. You said, I'm not going to answer why, Mr. Lorimer, why I don't do an investigation. In fact, nobody stood up to that. You're a city council. You know something? There's a reason why people are angry in this city. You know, we had an election. 3 new people were elected. It's time that things change at City Hall, and this is one of them. If you're at home, pay very careful attention to what these councilmen decide to do. Are they going to follow the rules? Are they going to make a special rule because they're developers?
Anyone else like to address the council on this issue? Okay, with that,
I have a question. Let me go ahead and ask it now.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would like.
Did you want to make?
Well, I'm going to ask my question anyway.
Yeah, then I'll call you up just after she gets the question.
I'm going to ask Mr. Vaca. It's within the code to have this extension, is that correct? I have a couple of questions, I'm sorry.
Yes, correct.
So we're not breaking the code?
No.
If we grant this extension, it's possible that the developer could request another extension and that would be still within the code?
Yes, correct.
If we extended that, it would not be breaking a code?
No, it wouldn't.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure that was clear.
Okay. Did you want to? Yeah.
Hi, Brandon Mann with the applicant. I just wanted to mention what Joe said is correct. However, as we are processing the final map currently, as John had mentioned, it should be complete, shortly within this extension period. And whether or not a new developer comes in and applies for other permits or entitlements, we would also, with the final map approved, be able to move forward with the project as is ourselves. So there's just an option. It does not mean that we're, 100% going to be selling the project and trying to redo anything. It just allows us the flexibility. Just wanted to make that clear. We do right now intend to finish the final map within the extension period as it's almost complete and move forward as is.
Okay. Anyone else like to address? Okay, with that, I'm going to close the public hearing. And staff, do you have anything else to add, please?
No, Mayor, we don't.
You don't. Okay. Any other questions of staff from any council members at this particular point?
I don't have any questions.
Okay, we have some comments. Would anybody like to start off?
Tony, have questions?
I'm sorry?
Oh, I thought Tony was
Did you have
searching for questions.
You want some comments? You want to start off, Tony?
Oh, okay, sorry.
So let me ask the question. Any questions of staff or anything else at this point? Okay, so we'll do comments. Tony, you want to?
You want me to start? Okay.
Unless somebody else did. Susan, why don't you? I think Susan wanted to start. Go ahead and start. No? Okay, Tony, go ahead. We'll get there.
I don't know, tie goes to the runner or what? Okay. As I understand the history of this project, it was over 3 years ago that the general plan amendment and the tentative tract map were first approved. That was in August of 2016. And that general plan amendment was to change the designation of this property from industrial to both residential and commercial mixed use, as I understand it, for parcels 1 and 2, respectively. Very different council at that time. Now you have 3 new members of the council who were not on the council at that time. Substantively, nothing has happened with the project since that time, with the exception of the condition put on last year as a condition of the extension request, and that was regarding a complaint from the adjacent property owner. In October of last year, and I just wanted one more bit of history, in October of last year I stated that I was not on the council in 2016 when the tentative tract map here was approved. Had I been on the council, I would not have supported it. I very reluctantly supported the extension request last year. Tonight, now move forward to tonight. Tonight, we're asked to approve yet another extension request. This is a matter of discretion totally left to the council. I've read the Camarillo Municipal Code. The applicable section, unless the city attorney corrects me, is section 18.10.160A. It is clearly a matter of discretion left to the council, and for discretionary action, in my view, to mean anything, it must mean that the city council continues to have the full discretion each time it considers exercising that power. And I listened very carefully to Mr. Purick's response to Councilmember Santangelo's question. Noting that nothing has happened substantively since the last extension, I am not going to support, I won't support an additional extension request. So the question on that one is why? And I'll give you a couple of rationales. Number one, fundamentally, I think, in my view, this parcel is in the wrong place for housing development. I think it should remain in industrial and manufacturing. I acknowledge the need for more housing. I acknowledge the need for more affordable housing. Those are critical needs. But this parcel, given its proximity to Dawson Drive, the Dawson area, and to Constitution Drive, just isn't a residential area, in my view. I don't think it fits. You have to look at, you look at each of these infill or potential infill developments, where they are located, and its location, location, location. And fundamentally, I think it's in the wrong place. Number two, there's a very large number of housing units and relatively dense housing units built in that specific area. and being built in that specific area. So we have the Park West townhomes, I believe is the appropriate name, and those condominium units. You have the Endora multifamily apartments. So there are a good number of units in that area, and those are supporting entry-level housing for the city. Thirdly, the city continues to need areas to support future industrial and manufacturing needs. And I'm looking at and I'm only confining my remarks to this to this specific area, but I am concerned about a shortfall potentially. And I note, for example, we have a new industrial development going in this week. I think we received the flyer on it today in the council mail. It's about 54,000 feet over by the airport. But I also am aware of the really significant need for industrial units that are less than 5,000 square feet and even less than 2,500 square feet. And if you talk to industrial developers, and I hasten to add, I've not talked to the developer in this case, but if you look at it generally speaking from a market standpoint, we have to be careful on that. So I support smart infill development, but I don't think this one meets the standards in my view, so I am going to vote no for those reasons.
Any other comments? Susan?
I have a question now, though. Can I squeeze a question in before I begin my comments? Does anybody know offhand what our vacancy is for industrial manufacturer spaces? Top of your head.
We don't have a number, but we understand it's been coming down recently. Mm-hmm. And we understand that there is an interest in the market share for small, they call them incubator type units, and very, very large, open, very tall ceiling buildings as well.
So I spent a lot of time going back in history as well, and I watched the meeting from August 2016. Unfortunately, the quality was not that great. It skipped around. So I did my best to get what I could, and I went through the minutes. And I also watched last year's meeting when the extension was granted. For the record, I did not hear anybody say that there would not be another extension granted, at least that I can recollect. I support this. The state is in a severe housing crisis. Ventura County is not immune to it. Camarillo is not immune to it. And we know that it's coming to a head and getting more serious because of what the governor's doing in places that aren't supporting the development in their communities. Not that we're at that point, but we are behind with our RENA numbers for some of our affordable groups. I'm first going to address some of the things Mr. Tremblay brought up. I actually think the location is a good place. I think it fits in with the other townhomes there. I also think that it helps, that its location helps to serve students at the university. I don't think we have enough entry-level housing in Camarillo. And this, when I talk now about affordability, I'm not talking about low-income affordability. I'm just talking about middle income, middle class being able to afford to live here. I don't know if people know this, but if you are on a single income and you're a nurse or a police officer or a teacher, you can't afford to buy a home in this town. And that's a problem. Those are the backbone of our community. So that concerns me. So I don't think we have enough entry level, even with Springville. I don't think we have enough entry level. This town is going to turn into a town that is not friendly to young people getting out of school, looking to start businesses, and young families. You lose your young families, you lose your students, you lose your students, you lose your schools, and on and on. I don't see this huge need right now for industrial. I also know about out by the airport, but that whole area that was going to be developed, I think, for, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, shopping center was now all zoned for industrial or zoned back to industrial. So there's that. I've also been paying attention to the economic forecast in Ventura County. We're stagnant. We haven't had any economic growth in 5 years. And if you pay attention to the economists that are working on the forecast in this county, they point to two things, and it's jobs that pay well enough, and it's housing, and it's the unaffordability of housing. So I feel obligated to help address that, and really the only way to address that is to have more housing available. It's supply and demand. So I support this, and you know, I also was not part of the original vote, but I would have supported it then too. So I'll support the extension.
Well, I supported this the first time around. I supported the first extension, and I support this one. I agree with everything that Susan said, but my concern about the affordability of housing has existed for a long time. The very first time I ran for city council, I pretty much ran on a platform of telling people there was not enough housing that young families with children could afford or that young professionals could afford. And that has pretty much been the way it's been forever in Camarillo. No, not forever. There was a time when houses in Camarillo were very cheap, and that was in the late 60s and very early 70s, and people moved here because it was, you got a lot more for your money than you got anyplace else. Right now, Camarillo's prices and everybody else's prices are so high that there's just no claim of affordability. So I support this. I think that it will supply housing for young professionals. I also think that there will be students in there, and I know last time we talked about it, you might remember there was one council member who said, "You're not going to have students in there, are you?" There is no way that you can discriminate in that manner and say you cannot house students. It's very close location to the university, but I think it will be a good mix of people. And so I support it.
Well, all right, so I've been on the record very long, discussions on this, and I've not supported this project. And the reasons I didn't support them is because of, it's mostly the mixed use, the airspace, condominiums, some townhomes, and I didn't feel that was the right place for that type of housing. There, and quite frankly, I still don't. I think we really need to provide some jobs here in Camarillo, and I know we've been spending a lot of time and effort to try to get higher paying jobs in Ventura County, and that's the big issue that we've got. We've got the housing prices up here, and we have a lot of the jobs right there. There's a great division with that. As most of you know, I'm in retail. It's not a very high-paying occupation to do, and I get that. But it's not just retail. It's also police officers. It's hospital workers. It's state employees. The list goes on and on to where if you're entry level, it's going to be very hard to afford any kind of a house or any kind of a living arrangement here in Camarillo. And I'm hoping that one of the reasons why I supported, like, for instance, a seminary project is I'm hoping that that will open up some of the single-family homes that we have here in town, and some younger families can come and move in there as the older families move into what they call, downsizing there. If that works, but I think that there's a possibility. We're already seeing a little tiny bit of movement on that, and I do think that is going to, there's a lot of people in the town, because, we all talk to them that are what they call overhoused, which means that they have too big of a house for what they want, and they really want to downsize. And I understand this would be an opportunity for them to do that there. I understand. I understand the affordability issue. I'm front and center on that. I deal with it like we all do, 7 days a week here. And I wish I had a solution and an answer to try to address that. But as long as there's a desirability to live in certain areas of the state, the prices are going to show that as well. But I would like to see if there's something else that we could do on this particular piece of property vis-a-vis, some sort of a campus or whatever it is to bring some high-quality jobs, which is what we really, really need here. I can remember when Amgen first came to Ventura County, and we have not had an Amgen kind of employer come to Ventura County to that degree in quite a number of years. So I still do not support this project for those reasons and others, and I think it would behoove us to see and to work and see if we can. We only get one opportunity to do this, and I think that we have to do what we feel is right up here. Mr. Tremblay. Yeah. I think Mr. Tremblay had a question. Go ahead.
My question is to Mr. Clifford. I think, Mr. Clifford, relatively recently I asked you to see if you could come up with the existing vacancy rates for industrial units, both of the large, and I guess I would characterize that as probably anywhere over 2,500 to 5,000 feet in size, versus the smaller units. Do you recall I recall that the vacancy rates for the smaller units were very low, in the low single digits, and that the vacancy rates for the larger units were at least in the high single digits. Am I off the mark on that? If I am, tell me.
Specifically for that question is I don't recall exactly, but my recollection is similar to yours.
Okay. All right.
What do you mean by over 5,000 feet, the vacancy was in the single digits? I'm not following you. I'm sorry.
For example, it was maybe 8%, as opposed to a very small vacancy rate for units that are below 2,500 feet. They're very popular, but the demand is high, but there aren't that many of them. So I'm thinking 2%, 3%. Sorry if I didn't clear that up, but that's what I meant. And I guess I would just add one other comment, and that is, before the meeting today, I drove this afternoon through that area. I drove through Park West and Endora and Constitution Avenue and Dawson, and I'm not a realtor, but I've always heard the realtors. One of the mottos being, it's location, 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 and I just have never felt that this area ought to be residential, and I still continue to feel that way, so I'm going to vote no.
Any other comments?
No, we're going to have a motion of some kind, so I will move to adopt a resolution approving a one-year time extension from August 24th, 2019 to August 24th, 2020 for tentative tract map 5969, subject to all previously approved conditions of approval.
And I will second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Everybody understand? Please vote. Okay, that's 2 in favor and 2 opposed, and 1 was unable to participate.
Because of a
potential financial purchase within the radius.
And a 2-2 vote is no action.
Okay, so that is no action. All right. All right, so we get down to, Counselor, I believe you already announced what the closed sessions were, is that right?
Yes, I did. I should probably elaborate. When I say no action, that means that the request was for you to extend, and since you took no action, you did not approve the extension.
Okay. Okay, so with that, we are going to recess into a closed session.